everyone, welcome to another Overrated Film Saturday. I'm sorry this video is being uploaded late. I was unfortunately busy on Saturday, but I will be up and running all the way up to what needs to be done today. So Saturday's video and Sunday's video are going to be uploaded all today for your viewership and enjoyment. Now, for this particular overrated film Saturday, I wanted to briefly address, as you can see by the title and thumbnail, Avengers. Yes, this is a big one when it comes to, in particular, Marvel entertainment and in particular the comics themselves, since the whole concept of the Avengers is fairly popular from that particular universe, I guess you could say the Marvel universe. But despite, I think, all of the hype surrounding Avengers, and although, and I will say this again, not every film that I discuss on this Overrated Film Saturday is necessarily a bad quality film. It's just that it's kind of overpraised, I think, for what it ultimately is. And sometimes I'll even enjoy the films that I discuss that I think are a little bit overrated. But I think Avengers is definitely that. It is enjoyable for what it is. But I think it worked and overpraised for what it ultimately, I think, delivers as far as a superhero film goes. Now, I will say it is rather unique because we don't see oftentimes superheroes coming together and necessarily fighting or defeating a villain. I would say that's probably, though, the only really unique element as far as Avengers is concerned. I mean, we've seen it done before, but not onto this level, at least. For example, Fantastic Four, which did not suit over well as far as a team-up of superheroes is concerned. So, yes, it definitely Avengers stands out as being a lot better quality, but at the same time, I still feel like it dives into a lot of cliche elements that we've seen in a lot of other superhero films. And although I will give the characters their due credit and the performances by the actors, as far as the Avengers is concerned, there are a few standouts, obviously, being Iron Man, possibly, as well as the Hulk, even though I don't think the Hulk really got a well gelled out backstory, since they constantly kept changing actors for him. When you look at a lot of the other Avengers films, in particular the ones that focus on just one superhero, you see that they don't really mask the same amount of hype when they're all sort of together, which I think makes sense. But at the same time, again, there are only a few standouts as far as a superhero film is concerned. Robert Downey Jr. playing Iron Man is, though, a perfect example as a standout. Whereas Black Widow, not only did she not get her own separate films, but she kind of just fades into the background, and, you know, we don't really care too much. Because there's not a whole lot of weight put to that particular character. So I think there's a lot of flaws with that, because I think had all of the characters been given the same amount of weight, it would have been, I think, a lot more interesting and dynamic film. But instead, you know, there's characters that just fade away, and then there's ones that stand out every now and again. as far as performance and as far as the script is concerned. Um, Another big issue that I think exists within this film that is beyond the characters is the plot, because the plot is very, very stripped down, typical, generic superhero film. When you look at it from the surface, I mean, literally, evil, crazy, bad guy, in this case being Loki, basically wants to take over the world. Okay? And is obsessed with power. That's been pretty much every superhero, pretty much entirely every superhero villain written. Or at least a lot of superhero villains have this kind of quality attached to them. And although the actor that plays Loki, I think, did a really good performance, it still doesn't really change the fact that his character is kind of the menacing, crazy, power-hungry, bad guys that we've seen time and time again. So that, I think, was one particular issue that I had. Just the fact that it was just so stripped, like everything that was everything that you see that's kind of within a superhero movie sort of exists within the Avengers film. But the thing is the reason why this still remains to be a good film is the fact that it knows how to present that. It knows how to present the superhero film genre well. I just don't think it's as a standout because it doesn't push the envelope as far as a plot, as far as characters are concerned. It's just kind of your standard. It's a good standard, but I wouldn't say it's anything that stands out or is as interesting or as thought-provoking as maybe something like The Dark Knight, for example. Because it doesn't have that kind of a plot. It's just so stripped. But I mean, the action sequences are enjoyable. I mean, you do ultimately end up wanting to root for the heroes, but at the end of the day, when you really look at it, it is pretty much, as far as a superhero film goes, it's pretty play by the book. It's like we have this evil guy who wants to take over the world, and we have these superheroes who are going to come in and stop him. That's pretty much it. It's not like, because at least with something like Spider-Man, you get at least a little bit more development of the character and who that person really is. It's kind of the similar thing with Superman too. You kind of get, you're able to identify with the character a lot more because you spend a lot more time with the character, and then when that character is being put into these dire circumstances, there's more of an investment, I feel. Whereas I think with Avengers, the whole idea just of a team, I think just appeals to people. It's a team, but the problem is that you only have a couple standouts in your team. And when you have only a couple standouts in your team, then why are all the other Avengers there? Like, why do they need to be shoehorned in when they don't really ultimately serve that much of a purpose, or they're not even really given their backstory? I mean, already you can technically count 3 Avengers that really didn't get at least within, I think, this context, a real backstory. Black Widow, we never saw really a backstory with her. We don't get an idea of Hawkeye's character at all. And you could even argue to the extent the Hulk, because the Hulk all the time has been changing actors, and, it wasn't anything recent that came out that involved the Hulk. So, obviously, there's a discrepancy there, and I think that's partially to do with the fact that, again, we didn't really see these new characters before in their own separate films. Whereas with Iron Man, you get some films that were centered around him, both good and bad. Similar with Thor and Captain America. Um, but beyond that, there's not a whole lot to all of these characters because they're just being all shoved into one, and then some of them are not even given previous films, so you don't even really know anything about them, or as much as you would think you would want to know about them. Because I think there could be a lot of interesting things that can be discussed. And I know some people might be saying, oh, well, they explained some things maybe in the sequel. And what I've heard about the sequel so far, it's just kind of meh. It's not as impressive as the first installment. And since I'm only discussing the first installment, even the first installment just sticks to the kind of bare minimum what we've seen from a superhero, what we've seen in a lot of superhero films already. And I think had they focused more on fleshing out more of the characters, had they focused on not trying to stick completely to the same plot that we've seen over and over again, then I think it would just be more memorable. Because this kind of a plot it exists in every superhero movie, but it's kind of just how you tell it is really how it carries through. And if you try to insert different things, and I felt like this film didn't really do that. It just kind of stuck by the book and is like, okay, we're going to give people what they want, instead of trying to push the envelope as far as a superhero film is concerned. I mean, I think it's good. It's good. It has its good moments. It has its great action sequences. It knows its pacing well. As far as superhero films are concerned, though, this one sticks to the same kinds of things that we've seen in other superhero films, from Superman to Spider-Man. You know, we've seen it done before, and had it been done in a more unique and interesting way, then I would give this film some more credit. But I really can't, because it has all of these similar elements. You know, it as far as any of these superhero films are concerned, but at least with these other kinds of superhero films, like with Superman or with Spider-Man, at least those films did at least have some kind of backstory, some kind of understanding of the character, and when they ultimately had to go and do their superhero thing, we kind of cared. And with Avengers 2, I think there's just a certain amount of predictability with it. They, like, within this film, they make this Avengers look like they're invincible. Like, they're just, I mean, yes, there is some kinds of moments of some desperation and intensity. But at the same time, you feel like they're gonna win. You feel like nobody's gonna die in this film. You don't feel like there's some stakes in here. And I think that's kind of an issue, because within a lot of other superhero films, there were actual people who did die. It showed that not everybody can, not every hero can save everybody. That's just part of kind of a reality. But this one just says, no, we're just going to have them go out and save the day, and they're invincible. And yeah, it's really cool. It's really cool that they can just do all of these things and that they somehow come out completely scot-free. But at the same time, I think it really just deters it from trying to be something more than just a good superhero film. So that's really my 2 cents on it. I mean, it's a very, very well made film, but as far as story wise is concerned, as far as character is concerned, there really is not a whole lot of weight. There is not a whole lot of stakes. It feels very it just feels very fluffy. It's like the fluffy superhero film, like, yeah, you know that they're gonna get out of it okay, no problem. And yeah, I think there's maybe one character that they have who dies and who had maybe an actual impact. Um, but again, he wasn't one of the main characters. He was just kind of there in the background. And although you felt some kind of emotion, at least I felt at least a little bit of emotion towards him because, he was sort of a fan of one of the superheroes. Um, at least I think that's the character who passed away. But as far as, big players or people that are like really close to maybe the superheroes, don't see any stakes with them at all. It's just standard by the book. They go out and they win. And it's just very, very, it's like when you see, it's like seeing a very good team going up against a okay team that is going to end up losing. Like you just know, just by the way they display things, that the Avengers are going to somehow pull through this without really a real scratch. And so I think that's really the biggest issue that I have is that it's not, there's no huge weight compared to a lot of other superhero films that I think we've seen in the past. So that's really just my 2 cents. I mean, had they made some of those improvements, I think it would have been a lot better. But as far as a team up of superhero films, it is a standout because there hasn't been a whole lot of them. And when they've been done pretty bad, like Fantastic Four, for example. And they're trying to reboot Fantastic Four, which I think is not going to go over well. But as far as this film is concerned, it's good. It's just not up to, I think, what some other superhero films have at least attempted to do. It just lacks things, and it doesn't produce a certain amount of weight to the point where I feel like there's really gonna be all that much damage or much change among the superheroes either. Like, I don't feel like the Avengers really changed all that much throughout the story either. And I wouldn't say probably within the sequel either. And I've already heard from people who've seen the sequel that it's just kind of meh standard. So if it's standard, you're probably gonna see more standard within the sequel, I would say. If this already maintains its really good level of standard, it seems like the sequels kind of goes meh. Um, and the fact that they're splitting the third film into 2 parts, again, I think that is a total cash grab. And I think that too is probably what's really deterred me from kind of enjoying the Avengers, because having heard the commentary of some people of what they've said about the second film and seeing what they're trying to do with the third film, it just really makes me not want to go see what they have in store, because I've already seen the good shtick that they could come up with, and even then, that's not even as much of a standout as some other superhero films. So yeah, I mean but that's really ultimately everything that I can really say about this film. And I totally understand if people have a different viewpoint from mine, but yeah, that's just my honest opinion. It's a good film, and I'll find myself maybe scrolling through and watching parts of it once in a while. But is it anything that I think is worth visiting again and again and again? I don't really think so. But I can understand why, little kids, little boys in particular, would really like this, and I can understand the sort of hype built around them. Sort of similar to why I can understand the hype for Frozen, is really big among little girls. But at the same time, it still offers the same old, but done significantly well, or at least better than what we've seen in the past. but nothing, I think, new or really pushing the envelope. So, yeah, I think that's really ultimately all I can say. But again, if there are any questions, comments, concerns, I'd be more than happy to answer them. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you all have a pleasant day, week, month, and year. And I hope to see you all in the next video. Take care.